Hello there, my beautiful friends. Today we're going to be talking all about Pat Mcgrath Dupes. Yes, you heard me right, Pat Mcgrath Dupes. We even have a $13 dupe in here, so let's go ahead and get started. So I have been kind of scheming and putting this video together for quite a while. I was waiting for certain things to come in the mail and test out certain things. So I am very happy to say that I think I found some pretty close Pat Mcgrath dupes here today. Now, as far as dupes go, we're talking about color dupes and formula dupes. So we get a little bit of the best of both worlds here. And if you guys don't already know this, I absolutely adore the Pat Mcgrath Special Shade Duochrome Super Sparkly formula that's at the end of her palettes. It's like the last 4 shades in her normal palettes. Those are like the special duochromy, like sparkly goodness shades. And I really wanted to find some dupes for those special shades because although I do really enjoy Pat Mcgrath's matte formula and her metallic formula and her satin formula, I don't love them as much as I love the duochromy, glittery, sparkly, beautiful, shiny shade. I honestly don't think that I would have gone out and purchased a Pat Mcgrath palette if I didn't know that it contained the beautiful, sparkly shades because although I do like the rest of her formulas, I just don't find them to be good enough to, you know, justify that $125 price tag. And I don't even think that with the sparkly shades, it's worth the $125 price tag. I think the palettes I have are beautiful, but I don't think any makeup item is worth $125. I'm sorry, sue me, but I truly just don't. That is so much freaking money for eyeshadow. But nonetheless, I love her formula. So I've been on the hunt for some dupes, and I'm gonna get started today with the closest dupe, in my opinion, to the Pat Mcgrath Special Shade formula. And those dupes are by a brand called Topshop. Now, if you're not already aware, Topshop, I believe, is a UK-based brand, and they mostly sell clothing, and they do have some beauty products as well that are kind of like their in-house beauty products. They're made by Topshop, and they have this certain kind of single shadow called a Chameleon Glow shadow. Now, it is kind of hard to find these online, and they've actually discontinued some that I personally would love to get my hands on. They literally have some dupes for some existing Pat Mcgrath shades right now that I have sitting next to me, but they've discontinued some of the shades. But they have 4 available right now, and I have the shade Wax and Wane and Shuffle the Cards. Now, Wax and Wane is this beautiful shade right here. It is a gorgeous duochrome. It's got like a pinky reddish purpley base, and it has a beautiful almost orangey flip to it that almost goes a little bit green as well. It's very multi-chromatic and it is so freaking gorgeous. Now, this shade in particular, I didn't find a dupe in my personal Pat Mcgrath collection, but the formula of this is almost spot on to the Pat Mcgrath Special shades. Now, this is the shade Shuffle the Cards, and this is an exact dupe to the shade VR Nectar from the Pat Mcgrath Submersive 2 palette. This is like literally the exact same thing. I've tested this out on my eyes versus the Pat Mcgrath shade, and it's the same exact color. And this is $12, and sometimes they're on sale for $9. So $12, sometimes even $9 when they're on sale, versus the entire Pat Mcgrath palette, which is $125. If you're just wanting those special shades, this is a pretty damn big price difference. You're saving a lot of coin by picking up these. So obviously we know that Shuffle the Cards is an exact color dupe to VR Nectar from the Pat Mcgrath Mothership 2 palette. But let's talk about the formula of these bad boys. So as I turn them to the side, you can see that they're domed products, so they're baked, and they have this flaky texture to them, but they apply onto the eyes really smoothly. They pick up with the brush nicely, but they do apply a little bit more intensely when you do use your finger, just like how almost every single shimmery, metallic, duochrome, whatever it may be that's sparkly, most of those shades apply best when you use your finger, but these do pick up with the brush nicely. So here's my Pat Mcgrath Mothership 2 Submersive palette, and this is the shade that we're talking about here on the side here, which is called VR Nectar, which is a beautiful, like, pinky, orange, kind of purpley duochrome, if you will. And as you can see, when I hold up Shuffle the Cards right next to it, they are legit almost the same exact thing. And as you can tell by looking in the pans, the texture of these shadows are basically the same exact formula. So when placed side by side like this, you can really see that these are literally the same color and they have the same exact texture. These are super foiled, super metallic looking on the eyes. If you are a fan of the Pat Mcgrath Special shades, I cannot urge you enough to go out and try these because they're so freaking good, and I really hope that they come out with more shades or they come out with some of the old shades that they had, because I don't know why in the world they would ever get rid of these, because these are absolutely amazing and they're only $13. Like, this is Pat Mcgrath quality right here for $13. That's freaking insane. So moving on to the next dupe, I was able to find 3 really similar shades in my collection to the Pat McGrath Iridescent Pink 003 Pigment. This is a highlighter that came out, I believe, 2 years ago or so, and this was one of the very first Pat McGrath products that I personally ever saw. I didn't really know about her brand or who she was before I saw this product. Now, mine is about ready to fly out of the pan because somehow the underneath of it like came disattached to the little grate that it's supposed to be stuck in. So as you can see, I can basically like pop this out and hold it. It's like a little highlighter cake, if you will. But this is an absolutely beautiful iridescent rosy pink highlighter. I do find that this shade has more so of a pink undertone than a white undertone. A lot of times with these iridescent pink highlighters, they show up a little bit more white on the skin versus this one that actually shows up more pink, which is always a good thing. But I actually have 3 shades to show you guys out of my collection that I have that are very, very similar to the Pat McGrath Iridescent Pink highlighter. And I want to start out with Looksie's Strip, which is this guy right up here, of course. This is a beautiful pink iridescent highlighter that does lean a little bit more pink than it does white. Now this one's a little bit lighter and a little bit more white than Pat McGrath's Highlight. Pat McGrath's Highlight has a very unique thing to it where it does show up more hot pink on the skin. So Looksie's Strip does leave a little bit more of a white kind of cast on my skin, if you will, but once you turn your cheek, you can really see that bright pink glow. And this guy is only $7. It's extremely inexpensive versus the Pat McGrath Highlight, which I believe sold in a kit of 3 different highlighting products. I believe there was a highlighting brush, the actual highlight pigment itself, and a liquid highlight or like a cream stick highlight, and that was $80. And they're sold out. They don't exist anymore. In order to get that highlight, you have to get it in a palette now with 2 other highlights. Now the formula of Looksie's Strip is not exactly the same as the Pat McGrath highlighter. The Pat McGrath highlighter is baked and it's got a bit more of a gritty texture to it if you put your finger on it, but it just shows up so shiny on the skin. Versus Looksie Beauty's Strip, which is a little bit more powdery and a little bit more of like a baked gelée almost formula. It doesn't quite have the amount of sheen that the Pat McGrath shade does, but it is really, really close, and for just $7, I would say if you've been wanting the Pat McGrath Iridescent Pink shade, go ahead and pick this up because you will not be disappointed. Now I also did want to include this Laura Geller Baked Gelato Swirl highlighter in the shade Diamond Dust. This is a beautiful iridescent pink highlight. This one has a bit more of an iridescent pink to peach to white type of iridescent sheen running through it, so it is a little bit different than the Pat McGrath shade, but it's also still really close. This guy was only like $14, I believe, for a mini size at Ulta, so it's still a good price point. And I figured if you had this in your collection, if you were wondering if it's similar to the Pat McGrath shade, the Pat McGrath Iridescent Pink, like I said with the Looksy shade, is definitely more pink, but this is really, really close, and if you layered this on your cheeks, you would build up that pink sheen a little bit more and get to something that is very similar to the Pat McGrath shade. And then as a bonus, I just wanted to throw in my Nikki's Tutorials and Ofra Cloud 9 highlight. This shade is a little bit more iridescent white, if you will. It does have that pink undertone, and you can definitely see that it's pink on your skin, but when you look straight forward, it almost looks a little bit white. I personally love this highlight because I think it fits my skin tone pretty well for being an iridescent white pink kind of highlight, but it doesn't have nearly as strong of a pink shift as the Pat McGrath shade does. But I figured I would just go ahead and throw it in as a bonus shade. This way you guys could see how it compares to the Pat McGrath highlight. So we're moving back to the Pat McGrath eyeshadows here, and I have found an extremely close dupe for one of my absolute favorite Pat McGrath shades that I own out of my entire collection. This is VR Fire Opal, and as you can see, it has this beautiful duochrome shift. VR Fire Opal almost has an orangey golden base, and it has a beautiful green and orangey pink shift to it, if you will. It is so freaking stunning. It is so unique, and I don't have anything else like it in my collection. It is one of my absolute favorite shades. I love just patting this guy over my lid. Nothing in the crease, no other matte shadows to kind of frame the eye or anything. I just like popping this guy all over my lid and calling it a day. It is a one and done look that I get compliments on almost every time I wear it. But the shade that I have found that is literally an exact dupe is from the Linda Hallberg Enchanted Secrets palette. I just picked this guy up for, I believe it was $59 on her website, which is kind of expensive for 4 shades, but if you're like me and you only really want the Pat McGrath eyeshadow palettes for her special shades, then this is definitely a big price cut, and you get nice giant pans in here as well. But the shade that is not only a color dupe but a formula dupe to Pat McGrath's VR Fire Opal is this beauty right up here, which is called Ethereal. This also has an orangey golden base and a gorgeous, really strong green duochrome shift that has a bit of a pink flip to it. It is so freaking stunning. You will see in the swatches, these are like identical. The texture of these are extremely similar. The Pat Mcgrath shade might just be a touch more flaky than this shade in particular, but they're so freaking close that you really can't tell a difference. And I've tried a lot of Linda Hallberg lately, and I've been so impressed with her formulas. She gets these shadows just spot on. They are so similar to Pat Mcgrath shades. I mean, honestly, all of these could be formula dupes for Pat Mcgrath shadow. In fact, there's even another shade in this palette, which is Zephyr right down here. And yet again, this is a dupe for the shade VR Nectar from the Mothership 2 palette. So as you can see, there are 2 shades in this palette here that dupe out 2 different shades from 2 different Pat Mcgrath palettes. Now, moving back on over to the Mothership 2 palette. This palette contains this absolutely beautiful, like blackened, sparkly emerald green shade, which is called Blitz Emerald. It is a really beautiful, smoky, deep, truly unique shade that we don't really see often in palettes. But fortunately, I was able to find something from my Metallic Mysteries palette too, which is also by Linda Hallberg, that is extremely similar. And that is this beautiful, deepened, emeraldy, kind of smoky green shade, which is called Draco, which is obviously a reference to Draco Malfoy. I mean, you're gonna put this Slytherin green next to the name Draco. We know exactly what you're doing here, Linda Hallberg. But this shade is so freaking similar to Blitz Emerald. Now, it's not as sparkly. This is more metallic and a little bit more blackened, but the texture of these shadows are extremely similar. They're both a little bit flaky. They both kind of feel rough to the touch, but once you get them on the eyes, they are really bright and shiny. So if you want to go for something that is as shiny and shimmery as Blitz Emerald, I would suggest popping a little bit of Collision, which is this beautiful, almost wet looking, sparkly topper shade that she included in here, right over top of Draco, and you will get an extremely similar look to Blitz Emerald. Now, speaking of Collision, which, as I said, is almost like a topper shade that you can use over top of any of these shadows in the palette or any shadow in general, or you could just use it all over your lid just completely bare, and it will give you a beautiful champagne sparkly sheen, which is what I have going on my eyes today. But this shadow is absolutely phenomenal. It's a little bit different than the rest of the shades in here. As I said, these 3 shades over here on the side are more of like a metallic with a little bit of sparkle throughout them, but Collision has this beautiful, like glittery iridescence to it, but it's not super chunky. It's a little chunky, but in a good way. It picks up the light so beautifully, and it just looks so shiny and metallic on your eyes. I absolutely love it. This formula is freaking amazing. But I think out of everything that I've shown you guys so far, in my opinion, this is the closest formula dupe to any Pat Mcgrath special sparkly shadow that I have found thus far. In particular, this is extremely similar to my absolute favorite eyeshadow in my entire collection and my favorite Pat Mcgrath shade, which is Astral Lunar Gold. Now, here's Astral Lunar Gold in the corner, and I'm gonna turn it and try and catch the light here so you can really see what's going on with that beautiful duochrome sparkly shift. This is an extremely bright, extremely duochromatic and glittery and sparkly shade. So if you don't like glitter, if you don't like chunky looking things on your eyes, I would probably not go for this palette if you've been eyeing it just for the special shades. Maybe pick another one, because this one is very intense. You're gonna get a lot of glitter, a lot of payoff. You're gonna be able to notice that you have bright glitter on your eyeballs. But this is so beautiful on the eyes. It is so eye-catching and attention-grabbing, and the actual shade of it itself is by far my favorite shade in my entire collection. Look at this. It's like an iridescent blue that shifts to a yellow gold, and I just live and die for this shade. And I have a bunch of yellow gold and iridescent blue to yellow gold type shades like this that I bought trying to dupe this out. There is nothing like this on the market shade-wise, but the closest formula dupe that I've been able to find for this specific shade, which is much more of a topper and much more sparkly and iridescent and glittery than the rest of the Pat Mcgrath shades that I have in my entire collection, would be Collision from the Metallic Mysteries 2 palette. I feel like it took a lot of rambling to get to the phrase that I was just trying to say there and to get across what I'm trying to say, but Astral Lunar Gold is a formula dupe to Linda Hallberg's Metallic Mysteries 2 Collision. They are almost identical. The colors are just a little bit off, but the formulas themselves are both absolutely stunning. Both some of my favorite shades in my collection, if not my 2 favorite shades, and they are just to die for. But let's go ahead and wrap this up with the newest addition to my Pat Mcgrath collection, which is the Pat Mcgrath Astral White Pigment. Now, this is one of her beautiful special shades, of course, but this is in a single pan, and this was a limited edition collection that I believe came out in the beginning of 2017, so like about a year ago this came out, and it consisted of some beautiful smoky and almost jewel toned navy blue shades. They were absolutely beautiful, but the entire collection itself was called the Dark Star Collection. I believe that retailed for $80, and then if you wanted to add on a few more things, there was another set that I think was like $150 or $160. It was very, very expensive. That's all I remember. All I remember is that I was too broke to buy it, but I recently picked this up secondhand, and it is absolutely stunning, and I really just wanted this shade out of the entire collection, so I'm really thankful that someone was able to sell it for me for a discounted price, just because I didn't want to get the rest of the stuff. I just wanted this guy. But this is a sparkly white duochrome baked formula. As you can see, it's raised out of the pan a little bit, but it has a beautiful royal blue shift to it that has a bit of a teal sparkle to it. It's such a unique and beautiful shade, and because it's a topper type formula, it has this gorgeous sparkle and almost glimmer to it when you put it on your eyes. But because this is a topper, it is a bit more sheer, so if you want opacity and you want full opacity type shadows, this probably isn't your guy, because you can really only get to like half the opacity of a normal shadow with this. Even when you build it up with like 3 or 4 layers, you can still see a little bit of your skin or of the underneath shadow poking through, but this is so gorgeous and it just applies such a beautiful duochrome shine to the eyes. But I was looking for a dupe of this guy, and I found 2 in my collection that I think are pretty similar. Now, the first one is by Kat Von D, and I know not everyone likes her, but in case you have this in your collection and you've been wanting the Pat Mcgrath Astral White Pigment, then I got you covered. This is the Kat Von D Teal Aquamarine Holographic Iridescent. I don't remember how she brands it exactly. This is supposed to be a highlighter, and this is supposed to be like a little mini extension for her Alchemist palette, which contained a bunch of iridescent highlighters. As you can see, it comes in this little packaging right here that matches up almost perfectly with the original Alchemist palette, except this is much tinier, of course. This fits in the palm of my hand. I think the packaging for this guy is really adorable, although I tried to depot this and I have no idea how I'm gonna end up doing that without ruining the entire packaging. But we'll get there someday. One day I'll grow the balls to actually depot it, because I don't want to keep this tiny little compact in my collection. It's just taking up room when this could be in a Z palette. But she brands this product as a highlighter, and I guess you could use it as a highlight, but it's going to be a very sparkly and very glittery and very sheer highlight. To me, this is an eyeshadow topper, and it works perfectly for just that. It is so freaking beautiful when you pat it over the eyes with your finger. You get this gorgeous wash of like a sheer kind of teal aqua sparkle, if you will, that has a white shift to it, and it's extremely similar to the Pat Mcgrath Astral White Pigment. As you can see there, when I turn these guys, you can see that blue shift. If anything, Teal Aquamarine is a bit more teal versus Pat Mcgrath's Astral White, which has a bit more of a royal blue kind of shift to it, but they're so similar, and if you've been wanting this guy and you can't get your hands on it, the Kat Von D product is only $14, and it's the size of just a normal eyeshadow, so it's like you're paying 14 bucks for just a little topper eyeshadow, which is kind of spendy, but it's not as expensive as Pat Mcgrath, that's for sure. So the last dupe that I wanted to mention for the Pat Mcgrath Astral White Pigment is kind of like an honorable mention. It doesn't exactly have the same texture or the same kind of sheerness as the other 2 that I showed you, but I have a single eyeshadow by Luxe Cosmetics, which is a brand from Etsy, but I found that the shade Mood Ring is pretty comparable to the Pat Mcgrath Astral White Pigment. Now, as you can see here, it's a little bit more opaque, if you will. If you put it on your eyes, you're gonna get a bit more of a white iridescent base versus the other 2 that I showed that will give more of that blue kind of sparkly sheer thing going on, and then if you build it up, you'll get to a more opaque kind of white to blue duochrome iridescence happening. The Mood Ring isn't as sheer as the Pat Mcgrath or the Kat Von D shade, but the overall tone and the overall sparkle and kind of glimmer to the shadows are all equally so similar that I don't think that if you got this one, you would be unhappy with it if you've been wanting the Pat Mcgrath Astral White shade. And Mood Ring only retails for $6, so that's a pretty good price if you ask me to have almost Pat Mcgrath quality. But those are all of the Pat Mcgrath dupes that I had in my collection that I wanted to show you guys. I have been looking for so freaking long for Pat Mcgrath dupes, or for anything that could be considered as dupes, like something that's similar or something that's a color dupe or a formula dupe or even both, and we have a little bit of everything here in this video today. I'm really proud of the ones that I found because I truly do feel with all my heart that they are very, very similar, if not exactly the same, to Pat Mcgrath's special shades that she puts in her palettes, which is awesome because that means that if we want them, we don't have to go out and spend $125 to get them now. We can spend as little as $6 and at maximum $59. So that's a pretty big price difference when you're comparing it to the Pat McGrath shades. Now I do know that in the Pat McGrath palette you get a lot more shades and a lot more variety, but as I said at the beginning, I'm really only going after Pat McGrath palettes for the special shades, and I know I'm not the only one. So this is for my people out there who are like me, who just want those Pat McGrath special shades. I really hope that this was helpful for you, and I really hope that you consider trying some of these products because they are so freaking awesome. I'm really happy to be bringing you guys this video because I want you guys to know about these. So please do let me know down in the comments if you've tried any of these before. If you found some Pat McGrath dupes that you want to share with everyone, please let us know because, I mean, I am always going after these types of shadows, so the more the merrier. But with that being said, that's going to be wrapping up this video. I do hope that you consider subscribing if you have not already, and if you enjoyed the video, I hope you consider giving it a thumbs up and turning on the notification bell if you want to know when I am posting. But I hope that you are having an absolutely amazing and beautiful day wherever you are, and thank you so much for spending your time here today. I hope to see you next time. Bye!